Welcome back to the show. So, if you are building a health coaching business, then you've probably thought about how you want your brand to look. And if you're like many people, this might mean that you've given some thought to what you want your logo to look like, or maybe what you're going to choose for your colors. But in this video, I'm going to challenge your idea of what a brand actually is. And we're going to talk about why creating amazing brand visuals is not enough on its own, and how you can take your brand from cute but forgettable into true brand recognition. So my guest on the show today is Naomi Gee. Naomi is a graphic designer and a marketing strategist, and as a StoryBrand certified guide, she knows how important it is for women to connect the stories to their mission and their brand. She is on a mission herself to help mom-owned businesses survive the startup period and thrive. So I think you're going to love listening into our conversation about how to build an impactful and unforgettable brand. So let's dive into it. Well, hey, Naomi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you about all the things about branding today. I know that you are just the perfect person to talk about this topic and to really dive into. I think that branding is something that my audience, many people are interested in, like they like to think about, but I know that many people feel really kind of confused about what to do and maybe how to put their ideas into practice. So I'm really excited to, dive into all of that with you. But before we get there, for people who aren't familiar with you yet, just I'd love for you to give a little intro about you and the work that you do in the world.
Awesome. I'd love to. So, my name is Naomi Gee, and I'm a brand strategist and designer. I started my career as a designer only. And you know how we all do when we enter a new career, where, the lowly little learner. And so, as the years have gone on, I've just found myself really passionate about making sure that businesses can show up strongly in their fields and be a visual and a marketing force so that the right people are drawn to their companies. And so for me, that evolved through jobs that I hated, jobs that I loved, and then eventually starting my own business, And so I am really passionate about health and wellness businesses, especially because as a mom of two little girls, my second pregnancy was really rough and my health went down the toilet. And so I ended up becoming really passionate about making sure health and wellness businesses can get found because I struggled to find people I connected with to help me through a journey of coming back to health. And so I'm really passionate about helping those types of companies be seen for the experts that they are in the world. Yeah.
I love that. Yes. Okay. Well, that is definitely what we're here for. So I love that you shared that, personal connection with why it's always nice to know, we all need to have a solid why, right, for what we're doing. So it's
Absolutely.
great to hear yours too. Okay. So then like fast forward to today, what are you doing now exactly? Like who do you help and what do you help them with?
Yeah. So anyone from product in health and wellness and fitness to coaching or training or any of those types of things and services that people provide, I help them through their brand strategy, which is creating a clear marketing message. I'm a StoryBrand certified guide. So I use the StoryBrand framework when we create a clear message for my clients. And then as well on the visual side of things, I help them develop visuals, including logos, colors, graphics, all the things that go into a visual brand. And then I help them systemize things so that they can take their branding and be consistent and cohesive going forward. And so I do this all in what I call my brand recognition formula.
Awesome. Okay, I want to hear about that. When you said StoryBrand, you mean Donald Miller's book, StoryBrand, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I love that book. If you got whoever, if you're listening or watching this, and if you haven't read or watched
Yes.
or, audiobook or whatever,
It
Story
looks like
Brand
this.
right there. There it is. Yes. If you're watching on video, you'll see. I love that book. I thought it was amazing. I really love his whole approach. So that is so cool that you are certified in that approach. So let's talk about that. I want to talk about branding. I just want to back up the bus a little bit though first, and really just start by defining branding. Because this is, I think the concept of brand is confusing for people, or there's varying opinions. But for you, Naomi, what does branding mean to you?
Yeah, for me, a brand and in their branding, it's all about how a customer perceives you and how you're entering their lives. Because a lot of the times, and as I said, and we talked about briefly, I'm a StoryBrand Certified guide. So story in your marketing is a big deal. But the problem that a lot of businesses are making is they tell their own story. But a customer cares more about themselves than they care about you. And I know that's a
Yes.
hard truth for a lot of businesses to hear, but people don't want to hear about how your company started from your grandpa's garage, or how you went through 10 years of, overeating, or, things like that.
Mhm.
Those snippets can get mentioned. Obviously, they're very important about your journey, but the overall story in your marketing has to come from your customer's perspective. And so to me, branding is all about how you're perceived by your customer in terms of how you help them survive and thrive. And your message is the key component to that. And the visuals help you highlight all of that completely clear messaging. So while your visuals are super important, and like I said, I started my career as a designer, so it may be crazy to hear a designer say it's not the most important thing, but it is the most important thing in highlighting your message, which is the top tier, number one, fully most important thing in your marketing and in your brand development.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to highlight what you just said about the story, because I think that a lot of people get messed up with that, is that they think, oh, especially with the book title Story Brand, or, anything like that, is really to think, oh, well, that's my story. Well, sure, I can share my story.
Mm-hmm.
This is my journey to wellness and my journey to building this business and all of that. And yeah, totally. Like you said, that stuff is important and it needs to come out in some way, shape, or form. But the story brand that we're talking about and that Donald Miller talked about in his book and that you're certified in is where your client is the hero of the story, right? That
Exactly.
that that was the shift when I was listening to Story Brand on audiobook. I was like, "Oh my God, that's it. Like they're the
Yes.
hero of the story. You play a role in that as the guide or the mentor, but
Mm-hmm.
it's their story. And so you need to put them as the hero of the story." And I love that shift. I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, the reason for that, I think that what you said is such a good point. The reason that you cannot be the hero of the story is because every morning we wake up and we are the hero of our own life story. So when a brand enters into my life, I need them to be focused on me. And if they cannot help me survive, or if they cannot help me thrive, then I check out and I go to their competitor, whether I know I need their services or I don't realize I need their services. I could be scrolling Instagram and come across like a decluttering type of an account and realize, oh my goodness, I actually need this. But if they can't speak to me and they're only speaking about their journey in decluttering, I don't realize they have anything to offer me. Does that make sense? And so I used that because my office is a little cluttered right now. But and so it's the first thing that came to mind. But when we put ourselves as the hero, then they feel like they have no place in our brand. When essentially we put them as the hero, then we get to come into the role of guide and take them through a journey that we know will help them survive and thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I hear you talking about these two things, like creating a clear brand message, right? Which is this whole idea of the story, but also creating amazing brand visuals, which is important, but it sounds like neither of these are enough just on their own.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like this like detailed woven tapestry. One time my husband and I took a trip to Scotland and we visited a couple castles and they have these insane tapestries covering full gigantic walls. And I just kept imagining the tiny threads that go into creating this tapestry. And
Yeah.
even if you watch the Disney movie Brave, you see the mom weaving one of these giant tapestries. And I just think, like, that is a perfect analogy for your messaging and for your brand visuals, because individually the individual threads are great and there might be pretty colors or whatever, but together they make a huge impact. Because while a thread might look nice in the spool on the shelf, it's not really something in and of itself. But when you put it all together, it's this insanely impactful tapestry on the wall. And that's what good design and good messaging do when they're put together.
Yeah, I love it. So it's really it has to weave together. It really has to make a cohesive whole, like the end result of the tapestry. I love that analogy,
Yeah.
actually. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into what you mentioned. You touched on it a couple minutes ago of your brand recognition formula. So I would love for you to tell us all about that.
Sure. Yeah. So my brand recognition formula is somewhat simple. First we clarify messaging, and then we create amazing visuals, and then we shoot for consistency. So that means systematizing, setting up templates, and creating a way for customers to take their branding on without adding hundreds of marketing tasks to their to-do list. People have enough to do in their business. Marketing is often secondary, backburnered, whatever the term you want to use. It's not the thing they want to focus on, but it's the thing that most people start buzzing around in their businesses, confused, chaotic, and just like, I just need to throw something on social media. I just need to put something on the blog. I just need to put an opt-in out or a new freebie or whatever it is. And so I want to create systems, strategies, templates for my clients after I've created their clear messaging and their compelling design, that they can go forward without having to do all this fiddling and wasting time. And that is essentially the formula that I've created. So a clear message, creative design, and then consistency strategies.
Okay, I love that. That's nice and simple too. It's not excessively complicated and totally something that somebody could approach. I know that you take a stand for helping brands move past cute but forgettable into the territory of like growing brand recognition, like you just said. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. A lot of us as starter businesses will sit down in front of Canva or,
Mhm.
even as a designer, back when I first started my business, I just opened up my design software and just started fiddling around. In Canva, you can spend hours as if it's social media scrolling all these amazing templates, and they are
Yep.
amazing. But when I say cute but forgettable, the reason that is because people will use these Canva templates willy-nilly. Is that still a term that people say?
I
and
use it, so yes.
they'll just choose this template this week, that template next week, next month they're choosing this template, and they are not cohesive in what they show up like visually in someone's feed. For example, let's focus on social media for this example. If I'm scrolling through social media, the people that I tend to stop at when I'm scrolling are the people I recognize. Hey, this person gave me value last time in their content, and I want to consume more of that content. But if you're putting haphazard visuals in front of people, then it gets really confusing. People aren't going to recognize you while you're scrolling, and then they're not consuming your content. So the reason that we want to be consistent in how we show up visually is so that they can access those clear words. And I can't remember your exact question, but did that answer it?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like a common mistake that people make, right? Is that you can, because it's not hard to find a template or something that is nice, it's appealing,
hmm
but that means that everybody can do that, right? Like anybody
Exactly.
can put together something that's, visually appealing, looks kind of nice, looks cute, but that is like you're then the same as anybody else who has access to those templates, which we all do, right? So what
Exactly.
you're talking about is I mean, it sounds like one of the key factors in differentiating yourself from the cute but forgettable crowd into like true brand recognition is the cohesiveness.
Yeah,
Is that accurate?
that's right. The cohesiveness, both visually and in what you're saying to your audience. So the
Right.
visuals are going to stop the scroll because I say, oh, that's the same bold red font. For example,
Yeah.
there's a specific account that I don't always consume her content, but when I scroll past it, I know whose that is because she always posts the same type of visuals. So I know if I want a certain type of content, I just need to scroll till I see that and find her account, even if I can't remember her name. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about is being brand recognizable, which isn't an instant thing, right? It's like something that builds up over time with your followers or
Yeah, and it floods past social media. I talk about Canva a lot because that's where a lot of people start with social media, but
Yeah.
it goes into the opt-ins that you might have downloadables. It goes into your
Mhm.
website, how you show up on your blog, how you show up on your email marketing. All of those things need to be cohesive in the same way that you're posting on social media too.
Yeah. So if somebody sees your stuff, encounters you on social media, and then heads over to your website, if it's like a total bait and switch, like the way that you show up on your website is completely different than the stuff that you're putting up on social media, that's going to be a real disconnect, right? Because whatever it was that drew them in, both messaging and visual, but whatever it was that drew them in on social, they want more of that when they get over to your site.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't realize it, but colors and fonts have a lot of subconscious influence on how someone thinks about you. So, for example, I use a lot of vibrant colors in my brand, but if someone were to click on a link in my Instagram and go to my website and it's like blacks and grays and taupe, they're going to be like, "What? Maybe this isn't the right website." Like
Yeah,
they're going to
maybe
be
I clicked a wrong
confused.
link. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and a confused mind, you definitely do not want to have confusion in the mind of your potential clients, or, because they'll just click away. It's just we have
That's
enough
right.
confusion in our lives. They'll
And
go
it's a
find
big
something else.
saying in story brand communities, if you confuse, you will lose. And so that's
Yes.
not what we want for anybody who's listening to our conversation. We want them to win.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, okay. So, I'd love to know like a little bit more about like what other things do you see people doing, or where else do people go wrong when they're putting together their branding?
One of the big things is that they don't templatize. So even if they figured out what they want their brand to look like, they've got their style honed in. One of the things is that they don't create templates to make their life easier going forward. And then it still is a big time suck for them when they go to create graphics for social media or graphics for their, Pinterest or blog or any of those things. It still takes so much time because they're trying to remind themselves every time, okay, what did I want to look like? What's my last 3 posts look like? All of those kinds of things that run through our heads when we're trying to create content. The other big thing that I see, besides not creating templates for yourself, is that companies don't have a brand playbook. And a lot of people call this a style guide, but I call it a brand playbook because, in my opinion, a style guide is visual, but a brand playbook includes your messaging. So, a brand playbook for me is an outline and a detailed I guess not an outline at all, a detailed document that really spells out how to use your visual brand correctly. It spells out how to use it not correctly so that you can have things that you want to avoid doing for your visual brand. And then it also details your message clarity so that, as you grow in your business and maybe you're having other people touch your branding, other people create your content, other people speak on your behalf, they know how to talk about your company and about your business in a way that is not totally divergent from how you talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so important. Right. I love the idea of a playbook, that's really a comprehensive, not just the visual. Because, yeah, you're right. When you think style guide, it's usually like a mood board, right? Like that's what I think of, and
Yep.
which is going to show your colors and your fonts and maybe some key images and things like that. But a style, or what did you say? What did you
A
call it?
brand
A
playbook is what I call
brand
it.
playbook. Yeah,
Hmm.
I love that. Well, I'm curious, what comes first? Is like it a chicken and egg kind of situation when you're working with somebody and you're building out their brand? Do you go with the messaging first and then create the visuals, or do you go
Hmm.
with the visuals and then create? Like, how does that go together? How do you do
Yeah,
that?
really great question. And it's something that anyone who's potentially going to work with me always asks. I always do messaging first. The
Yeah.
reason for that is because when we define who your target audience is, when we define what they want, what their problems are, how your solutions help them, all of those things are going to influence how you show up visually. Because when you create a visual brand, it's not just about what you think is pretty, what you think is, masculine or feminine or however it is you think you should show up. But again, we want to go back into the shoes of our customers and our clients and
Hmm.
think about what their needs are, what their lives are like. And that helps us define how we create our visual brand as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It has to, the visuals aren't just like what you think looks nice, but it has to spring like organically, right? From the messaging and how you want to reach your people and how you want to appear and the messaging that you want to get across. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Start with messaging, then move into visual. So if somebody was doing this themselves, they don't have a brand consultant or strategist to help them with this, they're they're just right at the very beginning, grassroots kind of thing. Start with your messaging. Get clear on that. Get clear on your story brand, right? How is your client the hero of the story? And then once you're clear on that, then you can actually choose visuals, colors, fonts, all that good stuff that really goes with, it makes sense. It's a logical extension of your messaging.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I'll give an example too, specifically to something other than your logo, because I think that's where everyone goes when they think about visual brand. But even color all has like subliminal messaging to our audience. So here's a really great example, and maybe a tip that anybody listening can take home. I like to make call to action buttons on websites, either yellow or orange. The reason being is because, for example, orange evokes a need to take action. It evokes a need to like do something right now. It evokes hunger. So you see orange a lot in fast food restaurants, for example. And so orange buttons make people's subconscious think, I'm going to click this. For example, a black button does not make me think that. It kind of makes me pause, become like introspective. You know what I mean? And so the colors even really matter when you're creating your visual brand. I mean, and you can do quick Google searches and look into, what color evokes, trust, which tip, it's blue. But
Blue, I was
like,
gonna say.
but like if you're trying to figure out the right colors for your brand, just know there are subliminal messages that people receive when they're looking at each color.
Yeah, that's a great pointer. Actually, I've heard the same thing about buttons being orange, and I've heard that it's Amazon orange. That's why like all of Amazon's buttons, I think, are
Oh,
orange.
interesting.
I mean, this was a few years ago. I don't even know if Amazon's buttons are still orange, but it's like a particular shade of orange. And honestly, I mean, a huge company like mega company like Amazon, they've got entire departments, I'm sure, researching and comparing like what is the most clickable color. So use their research, because we don't have that sort of research budget. Use their research and follow suit, right? Like, I mean, you don't want to be. This is the thing, though. I do wonder, and I'd love to hear your take on this. Is like, if it just doesn't, like, if orange completely clashes with your color scheme, you don't want to just have your brand be like this Frankenstein of like, oh well, let me
Absolutely.
just do this because that works for them and that works for them. So it has to make sense, right? Is that what
100%.
would
And
you
actually,
say?
before you asked the question, I thought maybe I should clarify. Nobody has to use orange. It was
Right.
completely an example. What I do suggest, though, is if you are a more muted, more neutral type of a brand in how you show up visually, I always suggest you have at least one vibrant accent color. And it can be something that this is only for my call to action buttons, but I suggest that you always have at least one color that is a pop type of a color that is able to make something jump off of a page to someone. And it doesn't have to be orange, but something that at least it pops enough that it's not like if you're all earth tones and now your button is also brown, it is not going to pop off the page, for example. So that's my suggestion. It doesn't have to be orange. Absolutely. That is not going to be everyone's brand. And if it was, then we would all not be recognizable.
Yeah, we'd all look the same, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so just after choosing your brand colors, consider, is there one that pops? And then
Mhm.
even if it's not used very often, then you at least have your call to action color.
Right. Yeah, I like that. That's the perfect way of integrating what we were just talking about, is really because, yes, I mean, we've all seen sort of color palettes and, that kind of thing. And then usually one of those colors is a pop color. So if you can have a contrasting, like a really attention grabbing, so you're not going to have your whole website be done in that color because that would be overwhelming and just too harsh. But yeah, for judicious use of pop color and accents, that's great. And same thing with fonts, right? Like I think that that's kind of a similar approach, is that sometimes because you want having a couple of fonts that go nicely together and some that you just use for a few accents or things that you want to highlight.
Yeah, that's right. I always suggest to my clients that we choose at least one heading font and one body text font. So
Mhm.
sometimes you have this incredibly fun font that you want to use for your headers. But if you wrote an entire paragraph in that, nobody's
Right.
going to read it
No.
because it's so overwhelming or it's so scribbled, because some people love those script fonts or they work really well for their brand. And
Yeah.
so if you wrote a whole paragraph in script font, I mean, nobody's going to read it. So change that font.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the ideal, in my opinion, is to have three fonts: a header, a subheading, and a body font. And sometimes the only difference between your heading and your subheading is that it's bold. Maybe your heading is bold and your subheading is not bold. And that's the only difference. But it's at least a little bit different so you can differentiate, because when we're writing either email copy or website copy or something as simple as a social media post, sometimes we really do need three distinct types of content being put out in our graphics. And so to have three is really helpful, in my opinion.
Yeah, it gives you like a palette to work with kind of thing, but still creates that cohesive feel so that it's recognizable and it looks like you and your brand.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I just want to take a detour for a sec because I know that something that you talk about, Naomi, is this elusive concept of work-life balance in your business, right? I know that a lot of people talk about that. But in fact, I would love to hear your take on why, for you, work-life balance feels like a thing of the past. And also, I'd love to if you could get into what you are replacing that particular idea with.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that work life balance is something that has been talked about for years by every type of industry person who's done coaching, who's like coming up through the ranks. Everybody talks about work life balance. When I became a mom, it felt like even more people were talking about work
Yeah.
life balance. And then COVID hit, and even more people were talking about work life balance. So it's just, there's no one around who has not said the words work life balance. And the thing about it to me is when I picture balance, I picture like the scales, not like a scale that you stand on in the bathroom to weigh yourself, but like the scales of justice, where there's these two sides being weighed against each other. And it just conjures up for me like a competition of two sides in my mind. And I really dislike the idea that my work, my business could be in competition with my husband, my kids, my life outside of my job. And so my preference is to choose to see how my all the things can work together in harmony. So sometimes I work a lot, and sometimes I put my phone down and I'm just with my kids. And sometimes my daughter comes to my office and plays on the floor while I'm working. And to me, the concept of harmony is just so much more beautiful when it comes to having my life be my life. It's all together, everything influence everything else. And I just love that picture so much more than this competitive jargon of I have to work or I have to be with my family and I don't get to work. And that's easy for me to do when I'm a working mom owning a business, that like shutting off that email that I want to respond to, that thing I didn't quite get done. No, my kids are home. And so do I need to shut it off? And part of that is achieving harmony doesn't come by doing it by yourself. You have to talk to your significant other or your kids or whoever's in your immediate vicinity that you do life with, and decide, what does harmony look like for us? Do I get to bring my computer upstairs while the kids are playing and work? Do I need to keep them downstairs and just talk about work in front of the kids so that they know what's going on in my life? And some of that also is defining and changing your vocabulary. One thing I hear a lot of people say is, I have to work now, to their kids. And one thing that I try to be very intentional about is that today is a work day for mommy, or today I get to go to work and you get to go to school to my kids. And so I want to tell them these are opportunities we have, not something that we are bogged down with, that we're required to do. But I love running my company and you really enjoy your friends and school. And so these are not things that like, well, we have to be separated now because I have things to do. But we get to go do these cool things. And at the end of the day, we come together and we get to be a family. And so changing our vocabulary and then defining things together to see what harmony looks like is such a more easy way to do life than having this competitive vibe of trying to balance the scales.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you totally. I way prefer that word harmony. It feels way more like flexible, like it can kind of shift and change from day to day and it's okay. And, as opposed to, like you said, it is kind of a competitive thing to create it be like work life balance. It's either one or the other, right? But whereas harmony is much more woven, kind of like the tapestry thing that we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
And actually, I'd love to know, how does harmony tie into branding? Just to bring it back to branding, like, do you have thoughts on how that concept of harmony really ties into when people are building and developing their brands?
Yeah, yeah. Just like my work and my family kind of just flow together, and sometimes my checklist gets done and sometimes I have to put things off and do it a different day. It can be overwhelming to think about all the things involved in a rebrand or remessaging or things like that. And so from messaging development to creating your logo to social media content, creating the templates, emails to write and to systematize in your automated emails, and all of those things, it's overwhelming, especially if that's something you've never done before, or it's not your niche, or maybe you've tried before and it was like the most daunting thing you've ever tried. And so when we try to picture like our business's branding in a more harmonious way, it's easier to take like a holistic approach of like, okay, these are all the things that have to be done. What's the first step? What's something I can work one step at a time towards a brand? And it's not something that you have to say, like, oh, because I don't have this done, my branding is terrible. But just like anyone who started a business or anyone who started a new job, you just learn and you grow and you iterate along the way. And so if somebody's in the startup phase of their brand and maybe they don't like their logo, they don't like their colors, just keep showing up. And as your business grows, those things are going to become more important and you can revisit it. And so when I think about harmony in branding, as much as I want everyone to hire me to redo their message and redo their branding, the fact is that some people have more important things in their business. And so when I talk to people who aren't quite there, who aren't quite ready to invest the time, I make sure I let them know, because I want them to have that harmony in their business, to not stress about getting that message or stress about getting that logo done, because maybe right now they're still trying to figure out who are their ideal clients, which is so important. So I think that harmony comes into branding so much, and overall business practices in general too.
I love that. I love how you've like brought those ideas like into the work that you do and into your own personal life. And yeah, I love that. I think that that's just such a great way of approaching things. And especially I agree about the motherhood thing. Like it's just yeah, it's got to have you've got to strive for harmony, not for like balance, because the balance thing is just you'll make yourself crazy.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. What is one practical way that our audience can begin? Because we talked about being consistent. That's such an important like cohesive consistency in your branding. So what's something that people can do today? Walk away from this conversation that they can a step that they can take. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. I actually have two. The first one is more around clarity than consistency in their branding. I encourage people to do what I call, and actually Donald Miller and StoryBrand call, the grunt test. Take your website to some strangers or to people who are just removed from your business. So it could be your neighbor, or you could bring your computer to church one Sunday and just open it up for a minute, take it to a coffee shop, whatever feels like the right group for you, and have maybe 5 people look at your website. Don't scroll. Just open the homepage, whatever pops up first without scrolling. Let them look at it for maybe 5, 8 seconds, and then close your computer and say, what do I do? And who do I serve? And if they cannot just grunt and be like, I know, tell you what you do and who you serve, then there's a little work to do on your messaging, because without knowing immediately on a website, this is for me, these are my people, they can help me, people will close their computer and move on to somebody else. So that's the first one. And it's more around gaining clarity. And because social media is so important to most health and wellness and fitness businesses, my second practical advice would be to create templates in Canva. If someone isn't sure how to do that, they can get, actually, I have a free resource that I just released, and it will help people streamline Canva use, just like a professional designer. So essentially, I literally walk people through the process of what I do for my clients to set them up for success in Canva. And so it's like a video tutorial and a workbook that goes with it so that they can work through all these things. And even if they don't use my resource, setting up templates in Canva is huge for any business who needs to streamline something. Just choose templates. Templatize, because we templatize all kinds of stuff, our invoices, we templatize emails that go out, we do all kinds of stuff. So we should be templatizing our graphics and our other graphical things as well. So if someone's struggling to get templates going and they just need to like brainstorm some things, I'm happy to chat with those people too. I offer like 15-minute free calls at just naomigee.com/15. And they can just book a call and be like, how do I even start this process? So
Oh, beautiful. That's great. Yeah, I will definitely put those links in the notes, in the show notes, because those are some great resources. That sounds awesome. And I agree, like templates, I mean, they just will save your life to have it all created in templates for sure. This has just been so fantastic having you on the podcast, Naomi. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Tell us like where, I mean, we'll put those links in the show notes. Are there other places that you would like for people? Where's the best place for people to connect with you and really, learn more about your work?
Yeah, the easiest way, especially because everyone and their mother is on Instagram, is Instagram. And I actually just am coming off a hiatus. I took about 2 months off of Instagram just to like regain my footing and just decide some different things that were going on in my business. And so on Instagram, I'm at Naomi Gee Design. And anytime you hear the word G, it's my last name, Gee. So it's not just the letter, Naomi Gee Design. And then Facebook, I also have a page that's I am Naomi Gee Design as well. But mostly that's just posting the things I post on Instagram. So yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, I'll put that in the description too.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been really fun, Naomi.
You too, Kim. This was amazing. And I'm looking forward to hearing how people just take these things and shine.
Okay, well, there you have it. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did, and I hope that you've got a more expanded and clearer sense of what needs to go into your brand as you build it and get out there and market your business. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. In particular, I'd actually be really curious to know if you have read Donald Miller's book, StoryBrand, and what you thought of it. So let me know in the comments below this video if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening to the audio, then find me on Instagram and let me know. All right, that is what I've got for you today. Have an amazing week, and I will see you again very soon.